Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of a new show. It's called Adventures in Networking. Yes, it's no longer the only networking show. It's called Adventures in Networking. We are Kelly and James. We are the founders of ONLE. We are the business network for people who like people. Hi, Kelly. You all right? You excited?
Yeah, I'm good.
New format and that?
Very excited. Much more relaxed.
Yes.
Who knows what will happen? Yeah.
Welcome everyone watching on the streams. As you join us, comments are open. I'm going to tell you what we're going to cover today. So what's this thing, Adventures in Networking? Networking's changed our lives. It truly has. You know, we met at networking. We networked on our wedding day. We have built our businesses through networking, met all our friends. There's a mental health journey. We want to share that journey. We want to share our adventures as we continue to build this online network for people who like people. That no one's excluded from. That's what you forget with online networking. No one gets excluded. If they want to be involved, well, you have to like people. You got told off for that the other day.
I did get told off for that. Yeah, no, I did.
You'll put people off that don't like people. Good. Go somewhere else. That is the point. So we're going to share some of our stories. We want to hear your stories as well. What's your first? We're going to start at the top, actually. What's your first networking experience? We've had to scroll back through the memory banks to remember these things. It is still quite vivid, actually, because it is quite a thing, isn't it? Your first networking experience. Hi, viewers. I'm not sure who's here. Haven't worked out how to see you all yet.
Sashi, morning, Sashi.
Yeah, do that if you can see people. That's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
We've already got some comments coming through. So, yeah, we're going to talk about networking experiences. We've got a guest on today, Lindsay Burden. Members will know Lindsay. She's been giving only talks this month. We're going to ask her about her networking journey, her networking adventure. And we've also got a new feature as part of Adventures in Networking. Shamelessly borrowing. There's probably a trademark issue coming, but the networking repair shop. Have you got a burning question? Have you got something that you would like us to answer? We've been networking for a long time. We probably know the answer to some of these questions. Kelly's decided to have a coughing fit in the middle of our first live broadcast. So we will be absolutely fine. So let's start. Kelly, first networking memories. What happened?
Coughing fit at BNI meeting, funnily enough. Yeah, that's what it was. Oh gosh, I can picture my first networking session vividly, to the point of standing there thinking, I'm never doing this again. Why would anybody put themselves through this? It is horrendous. I can remember BNI meeting in Botley Park, huge boardroom style table. As people did their 60 seconds, they'd stand up and it was going clockwise. And I'm thinking, as it's getting closer to me, holy moly, this is going to be my turn in a minute and I'm going to have to say something. Luckily, I had a bit of paper that when I stood up, rattled like this because I was really, really scared and I didn't really know what to say. And as it got closer and closer to me, the dry mouth, the tickly cough started to kick in. Grab the orange juice, not the greatest thing for a tickly cough. And yes, the rest is obviously history. But it was so vivid. I mean, that picture in my head, I can picture where people were sat. I can picture what I was wearing, the view out of the window, like it was yesterday. And this was probably, oh my goodness, 20 years ago. But I remember it like it was yesterday. So people always say to me, you know, oh, you're so confident, you just go for it. And I do, but I didn't start that way. I really didn't. And it was a huge, put me out of my comfort zone. I joined, but I had sleepless nights before going to that meeting for many, many months, probably years, in all honesty.
So you got the concept, didn't you? You sort of understood, well, I sort of get what this is, but it doesn't land immediately, does it? That you do end up thinking, is this really going to, what is this? It's big, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Sashi's right. It does teach us to talk in front of people. It absolutely does. I think if you're in a group of people that are friendly, welcoming, supportive, not going to laugh at you. Well, no, maybe do laugh at you if you make a mistake, but make you feel human because it's normal and that's what we all do it from time to time. I can remember the group. It was friendly. I'm still in contact with a couple of those people. Was it the most comfortable environment? No, it wasn't. But I came from corporate work. I came from the corporate world, so I didn't really know what to expect from networking. So I just knew that the person that introduced me was lovely. She was just an absolute diamond. And if she knew it was the right thing to do, then I kind of trusted her because she'd been in the self-employed world for a long, long time. And I really respected her. And I'm glad I did, because I wouldn't be sat here now if it wasn't for that. So no, massively out of comfort zone. And probably even now still get a little bit jittery. No, what am I saying? I don't anymore. I don't. Yeah, I like talking in front of people. Yeah. But a huge learning curve. So
if you still feel nervous, and even after quite a long time, that's taken us 20 years to get to the point where we're reasonably comfortable. For my piece, and we'll bring Lindsay in a moment and ask her a question. Morning Facebook crew, by the way, it is all Facebook people. Only members. I have put a little instruction on that post to show you how to get your name to show. We're not ignoring you, but if you're on the Facebook group and you've not authorized StreamYard, we just see you as Facebook users. So you're saying hello. We don't know who you are. We're not being rude. So give that a go. My experience, I didn't get it. I thought it was pointless. I went to a BNI, got there at 6 a.m, did my pitch. You know, I've paid to beer. I've done my pitch, didn't get any business, didn't go back. Just thought, well, what a waste of time that is. My accountant recommended I go to get new business, and I didn't get any new business. So again, if you've gone to network and you think, oh, these guys, it's easy for them. It's not. It absolutely wasn't. I can remember Roger Lamb, you know, he became a good friend of ours, didn't he? Action coach. I think he's still active in the local area. He said to me, who would you like to be introduced to? And I said, well, I'm a writer. So I suppose, because I was that, you know, typical like vague definition of what I wanted. I suppose I'd like to speak to web design companies because I could maybe do the content for them. That's where I was sat right now. And he introduced me to Tim. So he actually took me over and said, oh, Tim, he's a web designer. Why don't you have a conversation? So, you know, that was good networking from Roger, because he was trying to give me the thing that I wanted. Was I prepared to, you know, use that thing that he'd given me? Not at all. I absolutely didn't get it. There's loads of other memories.
I do have one other quick memory, which we probably should share. It won't take me long. James is worried now. He loves it when I do this. So we had a BNI group that really couldn't launch. No, it was Poddy, wasn't it? It was Poddy. So we were trying to launch a second group for a different networking group, and I'd gone along to Poddy and said, oh, you know, come and join this second group that we're trying to launch. And it was Roger again, wasn't it? Let's see if we can beat Roger's group. And one person decided to come along to that group, and I got very nervous in front of that person, went to make him a coffee to impress him. And under the coffee machine, just let the coffee completely overflow the cup all over the sideboard, because I was just a little bit in awe of him. And that was you, James, wasn't it? That was the beginning of our relationship. There we go. So there's another good networking story.
That is lovely. Yeah. Yeah. So how did it continue? For me, scripting my introduction, like introduction's probably one of the hugest causes, just while we're waiting for Lindsay to join us, of stress at networking. What do I say? Everyone stresses about the networking intro. And I can remember I ended up, because I was a writer, I ended up scripting it, and I used to read it off of a bit of paper. But it was good because it kind of taught me the mechanics of writing an intro. It's better to do something that, rather than bumbling along in what you're doing. I invented this little thing called Tweet of the Week. So I used to find a funny tweet and I'd read that out, because that kind of plugged in. I was helping people do Twitter. And that gave me a level of comfort, also gave people a laugh. And I became, oh, what's James's tweet of the week going to be? I don't think many people do that anymore, kind of have a hook, do they?
No,
but it's
they
just
don't.
something to kind of ad lib off. Just as I use the words ad lib, Daniel Moore says it. He does it really well as well. I think if you've got the ability to do that, it's a fantastic skill. So
I think being comfortable in your own skin as well says a lot, doesn't it? We were on a call yesterday, and Chris Mansfield, I think it was Clive Wilson, wasn't it? It said, look at Chris, he's just comfortable. He's just there. He's comfortable in his own skin. It doesn't really matter what he says. So I think there's a couple of things that go on, but it definitely takes a lot of time.
It does. Right. We've got Lindsay here. She is in the background. She is ready to come on. Hi, Lindsay.
Good morning. This is very lovely to see you on a Friday morning.
Indeed.
Welcome to Adventures in Networking, because that's literally where you've landed. How do you feel about that?
The adventures of networking. You know how much I love networking.
We're talking about, because you probably missed this in the background, we're talking about first memories of networking? And we've just shared the fact that Kelly took coffee with me. We were all nervous. We were coughing just to try and make people feel better. What's your early memories, Lindsay?
Well, my children will tell you I'm 156, so I'm not actually sure that I remember my first networking. But it was face-to-face, and it was a particular group that was quite male-dominated, and everyone seemed really, really confident and stood up. And I remember feeling really quite nervous about what I was going to say and how it would come across. And yet I was employed, so I was representing not a business, my business, but somebody else's. But yeah, I remember being very nervous and remembering it being quite male-dominated.
How did you navigate through that? I can imagine you're quite good in that space once you get going.
Once I was there, and but I think that's why networking, I think, is so challenging for many people and in so many different ways. You can't say one size fits all. That's why you have to find the right networking group. You can't say follow these steps and it'll be easy, because everybody's different. So for me, it was about getting to know people in the room. There's a shock of networking.
Yeah.
And gravitating to those people, and in those days particularly gravitating towards those people that wanted to welcome you in, were welcoming you in, and helping you feel like you had something to say and making you feel more comfortable. So that finding the right group is so important for you when you're networking, particularly in the early days. But I've got to say, I don't think there is a follow these 3 steps and you'll be, great at it, because everyone is so different. And we talk about, don't we, introverts and extroverts. But
did you enjoy it straight away, Lindsay? Was it something that you immediately understood?
I understood the benefits pretty quickly. And when I started networking, I had started a new job and I needed to get to know the business community really, really fast. And networking was the quickest way for me to do that. Yeah. And I think the good thing, in those days it was breakfast and it was really early, and I don't think I functioned particularly well. It came across very well. But it was, I think that at the beginning of my journey, that being face to face and having breakfast, so actually it sort of took the pressure off a little bit. So when you're eating, you can't always talk, so you perhaps I did more listening.
maybe it forces listening more. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Any highlights of your networking journey so far? Anything that stands out as a really memorable experience?
Well, like you, I met my husband, so there's benefits to networking.
Yes, I forgot about that. Tell us more about that, of course.
Because that's where I first saw him and spotted him. But I think highlights for networking, it's just the incredible people that you meet on the way. And I've definitely got, whether I refer to them now as business friends, but I've definitely made some incredible friends. Yeah. And so that just getting out of your office, and I think I've noticed that I've become quite lazy and don't leave my office space very often. Yeah. So addressing that. But yeah, I think for me, the highlights have been 1, meeting my husband, 2, just meeting the most incredible people along the way. People that have not only helped me on my journey and supported my business journey in some shape or form, and not necessarily because they became a client, but just people that you meet and share your journey.
Yeah. In fact, Daniel Moore has just said you were one of the first people he ever met at networking.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
And that was
he's not qualified it. There's no sort of commentary about, and it changed my life, or I'd met her at networking.
I don't think meeting me would change his life. No, it was. And the restaurant we met in is no longer there. Yeah, it was an evening event, if I remember rightly. So yeah.
Bournemouth, would that have been down in Bournemouth?
No, it was here in Salisbury, but it was I think the group had originally started in Bournemouth. I can't even remember. I don't know if Daniel can remember. I can't remember the name. Was it Pure Networking? Daniel might remember.
Pure or TBN, one of the two. But I think I kind of touched on this with my story. Like my initial networking introduction was BNI, and I was a member there for a long time, and I still am in contact with those people from 20 odd years ago. And it pure networking, there we go. Is it similarly for you, Lindsay? Do you have a thread of people that have run through your journey with you?
Yeah. And I think when I started my business, I was like, I really need to go back to Breakfast Ambassadors, which is a local group here. And it was the group where I'd met my husband like 20 odd years previously. And I walked into the room and it was like walking back in time. It was all the same people, which was both comforting and worrying at the same time. But yeah, you do meet these people and they do stay with you, and they stay in your lives for different reasons. And that's not necessarily from a business perspective. And having run my own networking group for over 20 years, those people will stay in my life.
Absolutely.
This bit interests me, like the change in demographic of networking. I mean, you gave the illustration and it was exactly like that. It was mostly men. In-person networking always favoured the confident, extroverted men, because that was what it was. That's who built it. That was that culture at the time. One of the things that I've enjoyed watching is how it's changed. I mean, particularly online, you know, I've had some great conversations with people that said, I'm much more introverted. So in-person networking is really awkward because what's the icebreaker? There's all the small talk, all the protocols that I don't particularly understand or enjoy. Have you seen the kind of demographic shift?
I mean, one of the reasons I originally set up the Women on Wednesday networking group was because we had recognized that all the networking was at 7:30 in the morning. And if you are a parent, you are not going to be able to attend something that is at 7:30 in the evening, 7:30 in the morning. Equally, if there is something in the evening, there is a high chance you're not going to be able to get there. So that was one of the reasons we set up our networking group for women here in Salisbury, was because we recognized that we had to do something about this timing issue. And I didn't even have children at that point. You know, the children were a distant thought. So, that was important for us. We also wanted to create a space where women could develop their confidence so that they could go back into those arenas where it was both men and women more confidently. But you're absolutely right. It has really, really changed. And one of the reasons I closed that particular networking group is, I think because of online networking, it's easier to attend networking at different times of the day. I mean, the array of what's available to you is so much greater than it was. So therefore, there is more availability at times that suit you. But also we felt that our original purpose, that safe space for women to gain confidence, wasn't needed, because women can hold their space without that now. You know, women are more confident. I also think, and I don't know the statistics, but there's probably been a shift in the number of women that are starting their own businesses. So there's more of us. So it balances it out.
I was looking at the stats for us the other day, and I think we were always about 50-50 male, female. And I think we're closer to about 70% female now. Exactly what you're saying, Lindsay, because I think in the online space, it is much easier to have your say. You've got your allotted time to be able to talk. Nobody's going to overshadow you. Nobody's going to make you feel silly, because that's your floor. Now is your turn to speak. And we're all equal in that space, aren't we? So I absolutely agree with you. I think networking has changed so much that I sometimes feel it when I go into an in-person space now and again. I think we spoke about this, James. It does lend itself more to that masculine vibe sometimes, that I want to dominate the conversation. I want my voice to be the loudest, and I want to make sure everybody hears me. So I agree with you. It's changed massively. It really has.
But I was just going to say, Kelly, that dominant voice isn't always male.
No.
So I don't think we should make it, and I know you're not, but I think we should, that's worth saying, that the space has changed. And I think men, the way that we work has changed, and actually, you know, things are leveling up. We're not where we need to be, but things are leveling up. So it feels a space where women are as welcome now as men were, and we are better able to hold our own. And, you know, so that's a really, really great thing.
I also think it needs to change. You know, we we chose not to have women only events because we're very much, well, everyone's equal. James will talk about this, you know. I don't know whether this is a good or bad thing for me, but typically in our relationship, James has a lot of feminine energy. Like, James is way more tapped into what you would expect a stereotypical female energy to be. And I'm not so much. So when you think about us, James would be the one that probably sounds awful. Maybe this is a tactic. James did say he likes the fact that there's more women in the networking scene now. So maybe this is just a ruse. But he would be more comfortable in that space. You know what I mean? But I was talking to somebody the other day at Paula Wingate, actually, and we were saying, no, it shouldn't be women's only networking. It should be about the energy that you bring and the space that you want to be known in and how you want to portray that. So I don't know how we would articulate that, but it's not just women want it a certain way and men want it a different way. So yes, I absolutely agree with you, Lindsay.
And if you remember when I was talking to you about joining the network, my biggest, my marketing is aimed at women. I predominantly work with women. And it's almost by joining the network, and I think when I joined, it was a 50-50 split. Like, how does that work for me? Yeah. And it's quite interesting because several men have downloaded my workbook, which is aimed at women. And someone's come back to me and he said, was really complimentary about my automation and everything else, but said, actually, the front of your workbook has a woman on it. And then some of your wording is aimed at women. So actually joining the network, I decided that it didn't, I'm here, I can network and meet women. And actually I work with men anyway, so it's all great for me. But it's raised a really interesting challenge. I was going to say problem. It's not. I now have a really interesting challenge because how do I, those people that are coming onto my email list that are male, how do I ensure that I'm talking to both men and women? What do I need to change in some of the workbooks that I might create that don't repel the men looking? Now, some men I think wouldn't really care, but it's a really interesting and great problem to have.
Hugely, yeah. And I think that's just going to develop more as time goes on.
Yeah.
The thing is even if it doesn't really matter, does it? Whatever your positioning that you do and who it's for is irrelevant in some respects. What's important is how you tell that story, because men know women. So, here's a great example of this. Lisa Yellen's come into our network. She's in the sales space. She talks about bringing, particularly online, there's a dearth of feminine energy that you need in selling. You can call it a softer sell. I think that's a massive sort of reductive, slightly offensive way of looking at it. But she's a big believer that we need a bit of feminine energy brought into the sales process because it's quite hard, sharp edges. I get that. I met Lisa and got on really well with Lisa, and I said, you should speak to Kelly because you will resonate. And I think that's what often happens. If you're good at telling your story, I'll often meet people that I think, Kelly, you should speak to this person. They're not for me, and it will also happen in reverse. So that's the beauty of the network, isn't it? You're not talking in most instances to your customer, but if you can tell that story and it comes across, those people will tell other people.
Yeah, and I think you've both used those terms, masculine and feminine energy. And actually, that is why I am attracting some men in who have conversations with me about potentially working with me, because our energy matches. And that's in the storytelling. But I think there's also something about we need both energies. We all need both energies. And I think what I love about being in the ONLE Network is it's really helping me to, connect with men, and not connect with men because that sounds like I'm looking for another husband, and I'm really not. I haven't got the energy for another one. But that learning how different people work, and I always said I loved coaching both men and women because it makes me a better coach. Well, networking in ONLE with men and women makes me a better networker and improves the way that I work. So it's a really good thing. And I don't think we should try and separate the two. And that's, I guess, another reason why I was getting to that point where I was ready to close our network, because I wasn't convinced that that's the space that I wanted to be in. It was important that we looked beyond that. And as I said at the beginning, the reasons we set it up, have changed. They weren't the same aim. We didn't have the same aims anymore.
It's different now. I think, James, you've hit the nail on the head there. I think for me, if James comes to me and says, you really need to speak to that person, I'm like, how many boxes have been ticked there already? Somebody that I massively respect, part of my family, is saying to me, you need to speak to this person. That is a warm introduction for anyone, isn't it? So I think, Lindsay, you're absolutely right. The same thing happened with Lindsay, James. You had a one-to-one with Lindsay and you said, you are going to love Lindsay. You've got to talk to her. And here we are. Exactly. So I think it's that short-sightedness of not thinking about who's directly in front of you. And if you can crack their immediate connections, that's a huge win.
Definitely. We've got to be mindful of time because Lindsay needs to go to some little thing called an ONLE Networking.
She does.
You've got to hop in the car and go to Manchester. Just picking up on that final point that you said, Kelly, we have to remember we are never selling into the room. We are sharing our message. We are making these connections because those people in the room become our greatest ambassadors when we do that. And they become our mightiest, marketing and selling force.
On that note, before you leave, any advice for people that want to get more from their networking? What would you suggest they do?
It's always be consistent, show up. And being consistent and showing up isn't enough. It's the follow-ups, it's the one-to-ones, it's what you can do, how you can help. And that doesn't always come. And I think I've been quite mindful of, since I've been in the network, when people say, I'm looking for, I've not quite gone, oh, I know. And then yesterday, Chris Mansfield said, I've got space for a client. And I emailed my client and said, I think Chris Mansfield is the answer to all your prayers. And then I did say, I might be slightly exaggerating, but you need to speak to him. He's awesome. He has only got one space. He emailed Chris and they are already talking. So, you have to remember that the people in the room can't help you immediately. But if you are not connecting, if you are not doing that work, they'll never be able to do that for you. And that does require you to show up. And showing up isn't just attending the meetings. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. What a great, I didn't even know that had happened. That's fantastic.
It happened in about 20 minutes yesterday after that one call. It was fast-paced.
Action-packed. We can't promise everybody that you will get results like that. Little asterisk there, but consistent. You and Chris are both very consistent, and therefore, when these opportunities arise, it happens quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Amazing. Thank you, Lindsay.
It's been lovely to see you.
Thank you. We'll put your details in the chat. Left immediately.
She's back.
I didn't even touch anything, I promise.
We'll put your details in the chat, Lindsay, for anybody that wants to get in touch. Enjoy Manchester.
Thank you. Lovely to see you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye. Oh, she's brilliant, isn't she?
She is brilliant. Yeah, she certainly is.
Networking. So, okay, we're going to move on. This is the final segment. This is called the Networking Repair Shop. We are going to talk about your problems. If you've got a networking problem, you want to ask Kelly and James. We've got a little bit of experience with this stuff, and we'll try and fix it live on the show. We're going to start because obviously we haven't had any sent in. If you've got any questions and you're watching live, please add them to the chat. We'll pop you up on screen. We may end up bringing guests on live.
We will in future.
Pluck you out the audience, but we can certainly pop your comments up on the screen. We'd love to hear from you if you're watching. Networking repair, that should be the net workshop, Daniel said. No.
Oh, not convinced. good suggestion, Daniel. Yeah, that is quite good, to be fair. Yeah,
that is quite good. So what's the question we're going to answer this week? We get asked this all the time. It's sort of a negative one, Kelly, isn't it? What do you do when you get stuck in a one-to-one where someone's just talking at you? Kelly, you've been in a few of them.
I've been in a few. I will share. Once I did pretend the Wi-Fi had gone down. I did cut the call. Just once. Now, those people that know me know I am incredibly tolerant, very laid back, very easygoing. But that one did push me over the edge, and that was a difficult one. I wouldn't recommend doing that.
Why was it so bad?
Just not listening. Just, when you've got one of those conversations and you feel like, this person's being really bold with me, I'm going to be brave and bold in return. And it just was going up and up and up, and everything I said, everything I did, every reaction I gave, they would just back at me with something equally, obnoxious, and just not going in the direction that the conversation needed to go in. And they weren't reading the cues either. It was almost like they had a script that they were kind of reading, and so I did pretend the Wi-Fi went, and I just messaged them. I think I probably caught up with them again another time when I probably had a bit more headspace, and just said, it isn't for me, but thank you for your time. I think for me, we're all people, we're all human, let's respect people. Innocent until proven guilty. Don't assume that person's a bad person. We don't know what's going on in someone's life when they're thrust in front of us. But I think it's about setting boundaries, isn't it? I think it's about setting the intention for the call. I mean, ONLE is a relationship first network, so a lot of the one-to-ones that go on within the network will be to get to know each other, because we absolutely champion the fact that you do have to get to know somebody before you can pass them business or collaborate or do a partnership. So I think there's that fine line of how do you turn that lovely, friendly conversation into something that's going to be more business focused. So I would never lead with a sales call. We do training on this, don't we? But I think if it's going wrong, you kind of have to take a little bit of responsibility yourself. So when I go into a call, I only have 30-minute one-to-ones. Okay. I have a lot of them. So I wouldn't recommend 30 minutes. I would say probably 45 is about the right sort of time. And that gives you enough time to have a bit of a friendly catch up. You can discuss your businesses if you're going to do it all in one call, and 45 minutes is enough time. But I think at the beginning of a call, I always make sure that I reiterate, we do only have 30 minutes. I book in back to back. So therefore we just need to keep an eye on the time, because there's also nothing worse than somebody just keep looking at the time when you're talking to them. So that gives you an out too. We'll come to Niles in a second. You don't need an agenda for the call, but I always try and have a couple of questions primed and ready in case it goes a little bit south. And I think if it is one-sided and a little bit too heavy in that the person you're talking to's favour, just have a little phrase or a couple of questions where you could start to turn that conversation back. So, it's been great to hear a little bit about you. Could we use a bit of time to discuss what I do, just in case there's anybody that that might want to have a conversation with me? I'm thinking off the top of my head. You know what I mean? So it's about finding a term that you're comfortable with in order to flip that conversation around.
I think it's about setting the agenda when you come onto the call, and you take control, because like Kelly's right, people are at different stages. We will come to Niall's question, but people are at different stages. Everyone's going to try and sell at networking to a degree. Of course they are, particularly if they're new to networking. Some people never get it. They just think, Brian Hilliard calls it face-to-face cold calling. I'm just going to meet everyone, pitch at them, and hope something's going to stick. So this does actually plug into Niall's question, but the way that you combat that is kind of set out your stall and say, look, I do want to know about your business, particularly if they pitch straight into it, but I need to know you first. So if you go in with an agenda, it's like, look, I want to know about you. Tell me about you. Tell me about how you got into the business, to try and disarm them from pitching mode. But if they are determined to go down pitching mode, I've been in situations where it's like, just let them talk. They don't get it, and just get out as quick as possible. They may kind of learn over time. They're not going to get anything from it. I'm not going to get anything from it. So it just becomes a case of time management. But I think if you start the call with the right intention, try and take control and say, I want to know about your business, but let's start getting to know each other. Pick on something in their background. What's that? Because immediately you'll disarm people, and they'll start talking about, they won't go into, I'm going to read you the brochure.
I had one the other day. It was 8 minutes. I think that was a record for me. But I didn't dislike the person. Very nice. I'm going to see them again in a couple of weeks. But we're obviously not going to be the best of friends. I totally respect them. I like what they do. I can definitely refer business to them. They weren't offensive. There wasn't an issue. It's just that we got to that point very quickly. And equally, don't string it out if you don't need to, because I was sat there thinking, oh my goodness, this has been 8 minutes. We're booked in for half an hour. And I suddenly went, don't need to. I know about them. I get what they do. I'm very happy to refer to them because they're in quite a unique business and their offering's good. Their ethos was great. I don't need to sit here and spend more time on this. It's done. Yeah. So, don't extend it if you don't need to.
But online, isn't it? We used to have to go to these locations and sit there for 2 hours.
Exactly. This is a really good question from Niall.
So let's just set the scene. So Niall's talking about either people what I call blind connecting. They just hit connect and you don't know who they are. That's one version of this. The more extreme is people that use, what's the premium thing that LinkedIn do?
Navigator.
Where they can message you before actually connecting with you. And you know these ones because you have to start scrolling through the message. We are developers. We've seen your business. No, you haven't. We've seen your business. You know this stuff. What do you do with that information? This is really important. I'm going to actually start at the other end of this. I'm going to give you the answer to what happens if you just accept every request that you get on LinkedIn. You will kill your engagement. Quite simply put, basically, if you think about it, when you post on LinkedIn, if you are connected with a load of people that don't care about what you do or even know who you are, because LinkedIn will share your content with a random selection of the people that it thinks is most relevant to that piece of content, you'll get zero engagement on it in the first kind of phase of it being released to say 50 people. That piece of content will get buried because LinkedIn will assume no one's interested because no one's engaged with it. So it doesn't matter how good the post is at that point, it's going to disappear. So the first lesson here is don't accept requests from people that you don't know. There's a way to kind of navigate through that, by the way. So that doesn't mean just hit ignore, but there's a better way to do it. So let's go into the two versions of that. If you send me a big pitch without even knowing who I am, I'm going to reply to that. And I'm going to try and get a sense whether you are a bot, whether you're an outsourced kind of salesperson, or you're the actual person who's just being a bit over familiar and trying a tactic. If you don't engage in a conversation with me that's anything beyond, well, yeah, do you want to book a call or not? If you say words to the effect of, do you want to book a call or not? I'm not connecting with you because it's a waste of my time. You're just going to pitch at me. If it turns out that the person's just being a little bit foolhardy and has a conversation, I might actually connect with them because what's happened? We've established a relationship. I want to know if they actually care about me or whether they're just trying to pitch at me to get bookings for their client. So there's that one, and I will come to you in a second, Kelly. The other version of it is the people that just hit connect. That's actually brilliant because you've got the option, because they've connected with you. You can send them a message, and my stock response is words to the effect of, thanks for connecting. Apologies, have we met before? If not, very happy to connect with people here to network. You can have that, by the way. That's literally what I say to people. I'd say probably 30% of those instances when I do that, I never hear from that person. Well, you've outsourced, you don't really care, you've just jammed the connect button. Going back to my original thing about it will kill my engagement. I'm not going to connect with you. I'm just going to hit ignore. But if it starts a conversation, sometimes those people have become quite good people in my network. Kelly, you've seen this.
Oh, definitely. Well, we utilise this, don't we? And now you could probably do something similar. They're networking at the end of the day. They're prospecting, and until you
they're not networking. Take that back.
They are prospecting. They think they're networking, but they're prospecting is probably the correct way to put it. We're in a great position, aren't we? Because we offer a solution to what they're trying to do. So it's easy for us. So I will always respond and say, hey, Bob, thank you for your message. I don't necessarily need this product or service, but I do run a network. So why don't you come along and speak to some other business owners? Easy for me. And we've gained lots of members that way from the good people that are genuinely trying to build a connection. But for you, Niall, I would do the same. I don't know. I don't really need the thing that you're offering. Happy to have a chat, though, to find out a bit more about you. Because ultimately, you're just trying to build a relationship with somebody. And if they don't come back to you, don't stay connected with them. There's no need. They've got no interest in you. So it's just a number, as James is saying. And, give it a week, 10 days, however long, and then just send them another nudge and say, oh, didn't get a response, just wanted to check if you got any interest in having a chat. And again, if another week goes by and they don't, get rid of them, because they're just going to damage anything that you're trying to build within the platform.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
I think we've answered that one.
I think we
That was
did.
a good question, Niall. Thank you. I think that's actually a great time to wrap up, isn't it? 40
Absolutely.
minutes we've been going for there. Thanks if you've watched. Did anyone stay through till the end? Daniel Moore, I reckon. That's all right, Niall.
You're very welcome, Niall.
You're very welcome. So there we go. That's the first only, well, it's not called that anymore, is it? Adventures in Networking. We'll be talking more about our story in future. Networking on our wedding day. We probably should talk about that one. Under that bridge. Yeah, that literally happened, didn't it?
Did.
And send us your questions. We'll answer those. And we'd also love to know what you're getting out of networking, what you hope to gain, and enjoy your networking journey, because it is a journey and there's lots to gain from it. So thanks for joining us, everyone.
Take care, everyone.